Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Elisa. If you've never been around here before, I create my dream wardrobe from scratch and I also create my original digital sewing patterns that I sell on Etsy. It's a mouthful, but now you know what I'm all about. If that's your jam, come subscribe. Alright, so last week I presented to you a new sewing pattern of mine which is called the Kylie dress. It is basically a neck halter dress with a dropped waist bodice and a tiered skirt with 3 tiers that, if you put them all together, make a beautiful voluminous maxi skirt. It's the Y2K dress of all of our dreams, and when I made it, it came together so fast and it came so easily to me that I decided to digitize it and put it on my Etsy shop. When I did so, I needed to make the dress one more time to make sure all of the pattern pieces go together perfectly, and when I did that, I made it from a black linen, effectively ending up with a little black dress because I dropped one tier and it came out a beautiful black mini version of the Kylie dress. It is so pretty that I just can't fathom not showing you it. So today I'm gonna go through all of the motions of the sewing pattern again, show you a mini version of it, and at the end you're gonna see this beautiful black version of the Kylie dress. You down? Yeah? Alright, let's go. So let's start with the bodice pieces. We have our front bodice piece cut on a fold, and the back bodice piece has an open back where the zipper is going to go in later. So I'm removing my paper pieces. I make sure I have my right side facing up, and then I place the back sides, right sides facing down, and I then pin and sew my side seams. I will press them open with my iron, serge the sides individually. This is what our bodice looks like now. We can put that to the side for a second and fetch our bust cup and necktie pieces. Now you do have the option to either use 4 layers of just this full bust cup and necktie piece, or you could cut one of these and then one of the accompanying facing. If you so wanted to, that's what I did with the first version of this dress for me. But today I'm gonna do 2 full layers. So what we need to do is to separate the 4 layers and make them 2 each, like this. And then we want to pin along the perimeter and sew all the way so that we can overturn the 2 with each other. I now sew all the way around the perimeter of my bust cup as well as my necktie, across the necktie up here, all the way back down again, and then I can overturn my bust pieces. All right, let's fetch a chopstick, because that's my weapon of choice when I overturn things. We are now going to go in from the end of the necktie. I'm going to cut back the corners here, just so I remove a little bit of bulk. And then I start to overturn these bust cup slash necktie pieces with a pointy object. You could have anything that kind of resembles this shape. Doesn't really matter what it is, but for me, this chopstick has been very faithful and loyal indeed, so that's what I like to use. And then before I remove it, I make sure that these corners of the necktie are nicely overturned as well. And now we have an overturned bust cup that looks like this. And it looks a little wonky right now, but once we press it, it's going to be beautiful and look like this. That's what it looks like when it's all pressed. Make sure you don't get any water stains on your fabric like I did right here. That's a bit annoying, but it's fine. Now I'm going to repeat the same steps with this other side. All right, we have our bust pieces all prepped and done. They look beautiful now that they are pressed, and we can now join them with our bodice. So what we need to do is to place our bodice so that the right side is facing up, and then we can plop our bust pieces right sides facing down onto it. We are going to start by placing the center front of our bust pieces onto the center front notch in the bodice right here. We then have a notch both in the bodice as well as in the bust that match up. It might be that because your bodice is cut on the bias like mine, the notch has moved over just a tiny little bit. You can try to get it closer without actually wrinkling up the bodice, but It's just a rough indicator for where your ruffles are going to start, which should sit right under your bust apex. I'm gonna do that for both sides, starting from the center front. I then take the other side of my bust piece and align it with this slight tip here that you can find in the pattern. This indicates where the cup ends. It doesn't line up with the side seam, but rather with this tip right here. And I am also going to place 1 or 2 more pins on this side to pin the cup flat. And this eventually is going to reveal the ease in the cup right here. The ease is now going to be gathered up in lieu of a bust start, in that it gives us a nice lifted effect in the bust area. And I just like to count my pleats and reproduce them on the other side. We have 5 pleats that are gathered up now and placed towards that first notch right here, and that is under the bust apex and makes the cup look like this eventually. You want the first and the last third of your bust cup to be flat, and then this middle part is going to be ruffled up. You want to count your pleats so that left and right cup are symmetrical. So I have 5 pleats, so I reproduce this now on the other side. All right, once again 5 pleats, and now we can see the bust nicely appear. And I'm now going to sew that down. All right, so this completes the assembly of the top of the dress, and that means that all of our actual pattern pieces are now sewn together except for the pockets, which we will now insert into the first skirt here as we assemble the skirt. I'm gonna put the bodice to the side for now. Here we have our pocket pieces as well as our first skirt tier. And the first skirt tier has a fold in the center front and then the 2 individual back pieces. All of this is going to be ruffled up eventually. What we need to do first is to open up our front and then place the back right sides touching, and these sides here are our side seams. Now the pockets need to go into the side seams. We have 4 layers of pockets. I separate them to have 2 each. I then open up this side once again and I place the pocket right sides down onto each of my panels. I place the pocket so it's 1 centimeter shy from the top edge of the skirt panel, because this is our seam allowance and we need that to ruffle up the skirt. I'm now going to sew and serge my pockets attached to my panels. Now that these parts are serged and sewn, I'm going to understitch the seam allowance by top stitching from the right side. I have now placed the front and back on top of each other. So this is our pocket entrance and the 2 layers of the pocket are on top of each other. We're now going to sew down this first centimeter, which is the seam allowance, make it 2 to include the seam allowance of the pocket, sew all around the pocket and down the rest of the side seam of this first tier. I'm then going to serge the pocket, and with that the first tier of the skirt is prepared. Alright, the first skirt tier is prepared with the pockets sewn in. Now what I will do is to add 2 rows of basting stitches to this upper section of the entire tier, so I can gather it down to my actual waist and attach the first tier to my bodice. So this is where I left my bodice off yesterday, looking sharp, and this is where I left my first skirt tier off yesterday, which has the pockets inserted right here and 2 rows of basting stitches on the upper edge, so that we can now place this right sides touching onto the bodice. We're going to align our center front notches right here. We are then going to align the side seam of the skirt with the side seam of the bodice, and pay attention that the pocket on the inside is facing forward. That is important. Pin the pocket down for now, just so it's out of the way. With my previous version, I sewed down the pocket along the waistline as I was attaching the first skirt tier. That's perfectly fine, but this time around I'm gonna let it hang loose and then just anchor it to my waist seam when the time comes. And then the center back needs to be flush as well. And now we have the ease of our skirt up here, and we need to gather down that ease to the actual waist circumference. For that, I'm grabbing my 2 upper or lower threads from my basting stitches, and I use these to push the fabric along and gather it down. And I do that until I match the width of my bodice piece. So in this case, we are working on the center back right now, so I'm gathering down the skirt to match up with this center back section right here. And then I pin down the skirt to the bodice, and I do this now 3 more times to gather down all the sections of the skirt. So it's now all gathered down, and we can now attach it with a few stitches. And we have the first skirt here attached. I love what this looks like. This just monochromatic black linen really makes the features of the dress shine, which I like. So I'm now going to serge this raw seam in here, and then I'm going to attach the second skirt here to the first using the same principles I just explained, and then we have the entire shell assembled. Alright, the shell is completed. I'm now going to insert the zipper, the invisible zipper in the back, and then I'll reconvene with you when I attach the facing. So I have just inserted the invisible zipper, and just a little reminder, since the bodice is cut on the bias, it is very possible that you will have to take it in a little bit. It depends on the fabric that you're working with, how far it's going to stretch and expand. This black linen more so expanded than the floral one that I worked with last time, so I had to take about 2.5 centimeters from the center back to really make it fit snug and tight the way I like it. And it goes to show that that is actually the case, because my facing is just cut on the grain line and it still fits the perimeter of the neckline even though I've taken it in. So it just goes to show that cutting something on the bias really stretches it out quite a bit, so it's important to keep that in mind. And now I'm going to go ahead and attach my facing to complete this dress. So here we have the facing, and I've taken the liberty to forfeit the side seam and just placed the 2 facing pieces flush next to each other to cut it like this. You could do the same, you could keep the side seam however you prefer to do it. And now I'm simply going to use this to overturn my neckline and really hide away the raw edges that we still have. So I'm placing my center front notch onto my center front. Then I move on to the little, what is it, like peak that we have right here, and align my side seam notch with the side seam in the bodice. And then I pin the back neckline, and like I said, because I've taken in the back neckline, it is a little bit longer now, the facing, than it should be, but not really as much as I cut back my bodice, because as I've said, because it's cut on the bias, it kind of stretches out quite a bit. So we have a little bit of an overlap here, which is fine. We can deal with that. So I'm just going to act as if this didn't happen, basically. And I just use this as I would have. And what I do is I just feed the long bit that kind of sandwiches the zipper between the lining and the shell back in. So at the end, it stays flush. So basically this is how I pin it. This is what I've cut away. Actually a little bit more, but approximately. Now I do the same thing on the other side. I then sew around my neckline and down my center back sides to sandwich the zipper, and then we are done. Alright, so I decided to give my skirt a last little ruffle at the end, just to make it a tiny bit longer, but also make it a little bit more whimsical. So I have 5 layers of 75 centimeter strips here that are also 11 centimeters tall. So that's what I add as a ruffle at the end. And the first thing I'll do is to serge these together to create one continuous loop. Alright, so now I have one super long loop, and I'm gonna serge one end of it. That's gonna be my hem.
I've been alone for what seems like forever. Try to hold it together, but I'm losing my grip. I need someone Who can make me feel better? Wrap me up in a sweater, treat my pain with a kiss. Then suddenly you are here, inside my head everywhere. Where did you come from? I'm wondering. Baby, are you made up of for real? Say, can you feel what I feel? 'Cause I can tell if I'm just dreaming. I wish I had a girl like you, and I wish you could be real, but you're not really here. And I don't wanna wake up without you, but tonight is gonna have to do. If I'm gonna get with a girl like you, I fade away. Every day you're not with me. Maybe now that you've showed me what love could be like, what can I say? I know it sounds like I'm crazy, but I need to believe in you to get through my life. Then suddenly you are here, inside my head everywhere. Where did you come from? I'm wondering. Baby, are you
Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video. Next time we're gonna get knee deep back into destashing, because we all know I have way too many fabrics, and I've been going about it a little bit differently this time, with a bit more of a plan, so to speak, and so far it's going well. So next week, the first video out of a series of probably 3, if not 4 videos is going to drop. So I hope I see you there. Bye bye. All right, let's do this. Let's see if we can find an inspo pic that fits the theme. All right, she is pressed and she's gorgeous. I think I can finish the dress. It's in a very good state. That's the plan.